Hey, everybody, and welcome to Comics and Cinema. I'm your host, Alex Klein, and this is our first live stream. Really excited to see some of you in there in the comments. We're here on YouTube through the Nerd Life Network, and huge shout out to our leader, Brian, for helping me out on this live stream, making sure I know how to use the system. A lot of fumbling, a lot of messing around, but we are here and we are live, and we've got a couple of things to talk about today. So, super excited to dive into it. But before we do, some of you maybe haven't heard of me or haven't listened to my podcast. And so I wanted to take some time to kind of introduce myself. So, as you guys can see, my name is Alex Klein, and I have been podcasting now for about 2 years on Comics and Cinema, which you can find on any podcast catcher, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, SoundCloud. And we talk about all kinds of crazy things on Comics and Cinema. And so earlier today, I went through my episodes and was kind of finding some highlights of what, oh, if you like this, you might want to listen to this. So hopefully, as I read this off, some of these things are things that you enjoy and would want to listen to. A lot of these are just me, but a lot of them I have fantastic guests along with me. So that's kind of how our show is going to go as well. Typically, it'll be just me going on, but I will also have guests on as well for people who are, passionate about certain topics. So, some of the things kind of going back down the line of my episodes. Every year, I do yearly tops. So, top TV, top movies, also top anime, along with the Oscars. I do Oscars pre and post shows. I did a really cool episode around nostalgia and media. That was really fun. Spider-Man, comics. We have a great MCU celebration episode. Also, a ton of horror episodes that I didn't realize I did so many of, but we've done Halloween Kills, Malignant, the Fear Street trilogy, all of the Mummy movies, as I'm sure some of you know, some of my favorite films, the Purge quadrilogy, which was a huge one, Disney Channel original movies, Godzilla, Jaws. I did the Jaws quadrilogy as well. I also have an episode where I did top films of the decade back when we were turning the dial to 2020, and also the Skywalker saga. So if you're a fan of Star Wars, we did an episode on every single Star Wars movie. And then at the very beginning, too, one of the reasons I had gotten into this was because I wanted to talk Marvel. And so some of the earlier episodes I did called Infinity Saga and Me, which was a couple of episodes around different phases of the MCU and where I was, how it felt watching those movies for the first time. And I do see in the comments there too. I did literally predict. I only missed two of the Oscars. It's a lot of thanks to some websites for their predictions, but yeah, so super excited to be talking with you all today. And just to be a part of the Nerd Life Network, this is going to be really fun. I'm excited to talk about all things movies, cinema, TV, comics, you name it. If it's not Marvel, we'll talk about Marvel, but a lot of things won't be Marvel on here. So hopefully you guys are fans of films. With that said, we're diving into the first film of the night, which many of you have seen reviews of. Maybe some of you have seen it as well. It's a little indie flick called Morbius by Sony and in association with Marvel. I'm actually pretty excited to talk about this movie because I initially was really pumped to go see this film. Maybe not initially. I saw the first trailer and I was not excited to see this movie, but then they made a second trailer that looked pretty good. And so I got excited again, but then they delayed the movie and then they delayed it again and again. And then suddenly there were rumors of weird, oh, this Michael Keaton stuff that's in it. What's going on? And my excitement just dwindled more and more. And eventually I decided, okay, I'm going to have to go check this movie out. And so I did. I went last night. I saw it in Dolby. I was the only person in my row. And I also was one of probably 5 people in the theater, which was pretty interesting. There was also a really weird sound in the theater too. I think there was like a broken fan. So it was literally the perfect experience for seeing this film. I really did my best to try and go into it without any expectations. And I was just about as impressed as I thought I was going to be. I actually liked the movie a little bit more than I thought I would. I ended up giving it a 6 out of 10, which is the same I gave to Venom, Let There Be Carnage and the original Venom. They're right in that same vein. And I think that's kind of what I wanted to open up with is an interesting conversation I was thinking about on the drive home, which is Sony keeps thinking that they have this like the next big thing. I mean, they keep having these oh, the Craven movie is coming. Oh, look out, we've got the Madam Web movie coming, and Dakota Johnson is a part of Madam Web now. Oh my gosh, Aaron Taylor Johnson is a part of Craven now. And they make these big song and dances for these movies, and then the movies come out and they're incredibly basic. And I know there's definitely some a niche market for the Venom movies, just in terms of the kind of kooky comedy that's on there, and obviously Tom Hardy's performance is pretty fun, but they're not great movies by any means. You could not compare Venom to probably any of the MCU Marvel movies, and probably a lot of the DC movies as well. And Morbius is right in the same vein. So it's like I was wondering to myself, why is that? And yeah, Kevin, I'm seeing your comment there. 6 out of 10 does seem high, but like I said, there are some things that I really liked about this movie, and we'll get to that. That's what's keeping it at a 6, as opposed to putting it at a 4 or 3. But so I was thinking, and I was like, okay, there's got to be something that we can figure out with this, because we have a lot of data points to go off of these Marvel movies now, right? We've got the Sony Marvel movies, and then we have the Marvel Studios Marvel movies, and we have the Sony and Marvel Studios Marvel movies. So we actually have 3 different data points to look at for the films. You've got the Venom, Morbius, the OG Spider-Man movies in the Sony category. You've got the 3 Tom Holland Spider-Man for the MCU Sony collaboration. And then you have all of the MCU's catalog for the MCU. And you can see that in all 3 of these categories, there's a consistency with them. With the MCU movies, yeah, there's some that are like Thor: The Dark World, Incredible Hulk. Even those, though, even though they're still not like terrible. They're not to the point where you would walk out of the theater because you hate them. But then on Sony's side, you've got these movies where you almost want to. I mean, there was maybe one moment where I thought someone in the theater was actually walking out during the movie, but I could have also thought it was because of the fan, that they just didn't like hearing that sound anymore. But then with the Sony Spider-Man movies, the 3, those are phenomenal movies. And I mean, No Way Home is in my top Marvel movies of all time. So what's the problem there? And I think when you look at it from those 3 data points, the problem is Sony. And so when you dive into that Sony section and look at those films, you have a lot of mediocre movies. And that's not just within Sony's Spider-Man universe. There's a lot of other sides of Sony too, where they just kind of pump out the next movie, they put some money towards it, and then they get really hands-on and they change a lot of stuff. And then the only thing that you may point out is, well, also, Alex, you're forgetting that the Into the Spider-Verse was a Sony movie too. Yes. And so when I talk about these data points, that's an outlier, because not only is it an animated movie, I think there's an interesting piece there. I haven't confirmed it yet. I'm still, I've emailed Avi Arad so many times. I don't think he wants to talk to me anymore. But you look at it, and I truly think that movie is a fluke, and not in a bad way, in a really good way. I think that they, at one point or another, I don't know who it was that came up with the idea. Maybe it was Phil Lord and Chris Miller, but they were like, "Hey, Sony, what if we made an animated Spider-Man movie? Like, no one's done that. It's been a long time. Like, what if we did that?" And I bet the Sony higher ups were like, "Honestly, whatever. Like, that sounds fine. Go ahead. We don't care, because it's an animated movie." And so they let them do whatever they wanted. They didn't dive into it and try and get hands-on with it, in the same way that I feel like a lot of these Sony movies kind of yeah, and Kevin, there you go. Yeah, Spider-Verse isn't Sony. And in a weird way, I think it's because these powers that be, Avi Arad is usually the person I blame. There's a couple of others, a kind of Sony parliament, that I don't think they were that involved in the Spider-Verse film. I think they kind of let them do it because it's an animated movie and maybe they're not as familiar with that. And so they get more hands-on with the live action movies. And then those live action movies end up not being very good. And we all wonder why. And it's like, well, I don't get it. Why isn't it bad? I was there every day telling them exactly what to do. And it's like, yeah, that's your problem. You're in there telling these movie artists what to do, and you have no idea how to do this. And you have a track record that's like 20 years long, saying that you don't know how to do this. So I shouldn't have been surprised. I was still a little, but I shouldn't have been surprised that the movie didn't do as well, both, critically and commercially, as we thought it would. But it makes me a little sad, because I've always been of the mind that Sony needs to give those rights back to Marvel. Even if they sell them back, that's fine too. But I feel bad, because I feel like we shouldn't act that way, right? Like we should be rooting for movie studios, and we should be rooting for them to do their best work. Okay, Sony's got it. That's taking some weight off of Marvel Studios, that they don't have to worry about Spider-Man. But when you see Marvel Studios come in and make these Spider-Man movies, and they're so good, you can't help but be like, can you just give them back? Can you please just give the rights back so that we can actually have some good movies? I can't guarantee that Morbius would have been good in the hands of Marvel Studios. I can guarantee that it probably wouldn't have been made at all, at least for a really long time, which is probably what we needed, because I did think at multiple times during this movie, why does this movie exist? This movie, I don't think, needs to exist. It's one of those weird pocket movies that exists in the early 2000s, and even back then, I probably would have enjoyed it, because Morbius is a character that I've always liked. I haven't read a lot of comics from him, but he's the living vampire. He's like the main vampire guy in the MCU. Him and Blade. I even have a Funko Pop of Morbius that I was telling Brian before the show. I was going to sell it on eBay before the movie came out. I was like, I'm going to make a killing on this, because it was going for pretty high prices. But then when the movie came out and the reviews came out, I was like, there's no way I'm going to get rid of this Funko Pop. So he's here with me now forever. So like I said, I was in a row with nobody there. I'm big on respecting people's vision for the movie. I do not pull my phone out during films, but since no one was in my row or the row in front of me or behind me, I did pull my phone out and I took some notes while I was watching the movie. Literally just a few things that stood out to me. I wish there would have been more to say, but there wasn't. If you've seen the trailers, you've basically seen the movie. But what was interesting is a story of a young boy who has a rare blood disease and lives at a house or a hospital that has other people who have rare blood diseases as well. They don't really explain this, but Jared Harris plays the doctor of the hospital. And I was under the assumption he was a bad guy, so I was very untrusting of him at the beginning. But he brings in this new guy named Lucius. It's either Lucius or Lucy, and I feel like they jump back and forth with it. But he brings this guy in, and Morbius is like, "Oh, I'm going to call you Milo," because Milo's the kid that's been in this bed, and there's been multiple Milos. They've all died, so you're the new Milo. It almost felt like the new Doug from Thor Ragnarok. But it was so strange. And the first note that I have is outside of this hospital is a school. And it's like a preparatory school, basically. They're all wearing uniforms, and these kids are making fun. They're not making fun of Morbius. They're making fun of the hospital. Like the entirety of this hospital of kids with special needs, with blood disorders. And so my note was, man, it must suck being constantly teased by kids for being in a hospital. And to the point where Milo faints because those teases are so vicious. Like they're like, get a load of these kids. And then Milo faints in his hospital bed, which I was like, man, he can't take a joke. But at the same time, what are kids doing making fun of, like, that just seems so early 2000s. I feel like that's not a cool joke anymore, to be like, oh, let's go make fun of kids at a hospital. But they don't stop there. They do that twice. And I should say too, again, these are spoilers for the movie, but I have a feeling most of you probably don't care about that. None of this affects the greater MCU, and honestly, none of this really affects the greater Sony, series as well. But they come outside and they're on crutches because they can't walk. They can barely walk because of this blood disorder. And these kids start teasing them again and start beating them up. They literally beat up a kid with a blood disorder. And I'm like, what world do we live in where there's kids that are still that cruel? Like, someone forgets to tie their shoes like Morbius does during the entire movie. Yeah, I can get that. Make fun of that. But like, why are we making fun of somebody with a blood disorder? It's very, very strange. The next note that I have, though, is that and as many of you may know, may not know, I'm a huge fan of rats. And it's more of in a facetious way. I would never own a pet rat, but I put a note in here. They put bat DNA into rat DNA, so we got the bat into the rat, and then the rat lives, which was pretty cool. That was the test. Morbius goes to Costa Rica or someone out there and gets some bats to bite him and brings the blood back. It's very fast. Everything in this movie happens very fast as well. It's a very short movie. But the next note that I had too was in regards to Morbius's footwear. As you can see in multiple scenes, as he's hobbling around, his shoelaces are just all over the place. Why doesn't he just wear slip-ons? I don't understand that. I mean, he's been in a hospital setting. I guarantee you there were slip-ons in the hospital. But he walks around with regular shoes and doesn't tie them. I get that it probably hurts him a lot to bend over. There's got to be someone who is like, hey, man, I've got a sick pair of Vans. They're Morbius-themed Vans. Here you go. You can wear these. You look cool. But instead, he just wears his shoes and doesn't tie them. We also get a really interesting cameo in this movie that I don't know if any of you caught. It was a maybe Arthur Harrow's shoes of glass. Yeah, that would have been. It kind of felt like he was walking on shoes with glass, though. The way that he, it was interesting, very interesting. There's a whole scene with him and Milo walking. It felt like they were walking in slow motion, but they were just kind of hobbling along on the street as everyone's walking past, and they're having this really long conversation. And they were trying to make it seem like a cool guys walk away from explosion scene, and it wasn't at all. But this cameo, is a secret cameo, is by a gentleman. His name is I might not have him on here, but he's from The Mummy, guys. Is a guy from The Mummy. His name was Mr. Daniels in The Mummy. He was one of the American adventurers that goes to get the sarcophagi of Imhotep, and he's in this movie as one of the security guards. He comes in and gets killed by Morbius after he turns into a vampire. Brian says, "Did Milo feel different from Doctor Who?" Sorry, guys, I have not seen any Doctor Who. All I can go on. I think he was in. There was a movie that he was in that I saw. They said, "Oh, he was really good," but I don't. I'm not. I don't remember. But so that was cool. I like that we got a Mummy reference in this movie. Obviously, Jared Harris did a good job. Milo as well. The actor, I don't remember his name, but he did a really good job. He was very animated, and he was essentially the foil for Morbius. So these two guys have grown up and become incredibly rich. Morbius being a scientist, he created artificial blood, which is actually really cool. And Milo, we don't know how he became rich, other than it seems like he's now being taken care of full time by Jared Harris, which was a huge question mark that I had in the movie too, because I'm thinking Jared Harris is the proprietor of a giant hospital. So what happened? Did the hospital go out of business? Did every person in the hospital pass away except for Milo? Why did he leave and just solely take care of Milo? Didn't make sense at all. But here's a cool thing. I know some people were getting down on the CGI. I thought the CGI was pretty cool. And when I looked at it from a early 2000s lens, is actually pretty cool. A lot of it, the vampire changing, the kind of ghost particles that were around them as they were jumping around and flying, all of that was super cool. I thought I loved the colors too. Like when he's in a prison, an orange prison jumpsuit, and the colors behind him, his trail is orange. And then there's another scene where he's wearing a little bit of purple, a little flare, and it turns purple as well. But what was really cool to me, I think my favorite piece of it was the echolocation. So his ears get this really cool, like frayed look, and then his eyes get really dilated and turn kind of. It almost looked like the not the Remember All, but the Pensieve from Harry Potter. It was really cool, and then he could hear things miles and miles and miles away, which I don't know if that's overpowered or not. It was pretty crazy. He'd listen and he could hear the entire city and end up finding, he's looking for the doctor at one point, his Dr. Bancroft, his will they, won't they relationship in the movie that actually ended up being pretty strange. And that was a note that I had in here as well. He makes another note too when he's being chased by some police officers and they catch him, and he needs to get his daily fix of blood, and he says, "I'm hungry. You wouldn't like me when I'm hungry." And I actually really liked that line because I immediately thought of my wife thinking of me, and probably my family too. I have a long streak of being someone who's hangry when they get hungry, and so I appreciated that. I can sympathize with Michael Morbius in that regard. But okay, so at this point he turned into the vampire. He kills a couple of people and he flees. But then they catch him and they put him in prison. And Morbius's buddy Milo comes to visit him in prison and brings him a bag of blood. And I'm thinking to myself, how did he get past the pat down? He's got a bag of blood. He's got his cane. He even's like drinking from a little whiskey container. Did they not pat him down at all? I couldn't understand that. But he brings in blood and they escape and then they fight. So basically, Milo takes this serum along with Morbius, even though Morbius tells him not to because it's got its costs. But Milo ends up obviously being the bad guy, and so then they have to fight and yada yada yada. There's actually a really cool scene in the movie though, this hospital scene where this character, inconsequential character, gets killed by a we are all a bag of blood, bag of artificial blood maybe. We can't confirm that, but it really cool play with lighting so it's the scene in this really long hallway, and as you walk down the hallway, the lights light up, and then when you walk past the lights they turn off, which was really cool for energy efficiency purposes and also for suspense purposes, because you start seeing a vampire crawling on the ceiling and the lights go off and then it's gone. But what I liked the most about it was after the vampire got this person, the lights slowly started shutting off as they got closer to him, which was just really cool. I thought it was a really cool camera scene. It was probably one of the 3 camera scenes in the movie that I actually liked. But it was cool. I thought it was crazy. And then we get to another interesting piece. And I know we're getting to what everyone's wanting to talk about, which is, what happens at the end of this? What does this mean for the rest of the MCU? But at the end of this, Dr. Bancroft, again, if you're not wanting to get spoiled with this, plug your ears for a couple of seconds. But Dr. Bancroft gets captured by Milo and kind of killed, I think. She gets like her blood drained or something. They don't really say, but he finds her on the top of a building and she's bleeding. And she says, basically, feed on me, Seymour. And Morbius is like, no, I can't do it. And she says, please make my death mean something. And then she kisses him and bites his lip, which causes a little bit of blood to fall on her. And she makes it act like she was the vampire. Oh, actually, I'm figuring this out live, guys. This is a comics and cinema first. And then she dies. And Morbius is a little more powerful now, and he fights and wins. And the movie just kind of ends, but then we get this shot of Bancroft on the roof, and she opens her eyes, and she's got red vampire eyes. And I was like, I thought she died. But now that I'm saying it, I think maybe because she put his blood in her mouth, that maybe she became a vampire too. They didn't explain it. I mean, it took me, what is this now? 24 hours to figure it out, which is not great when you're talking about plot holes. And then that's it. The movie just ends. And he's flying away or something like that. It's kind of silly. But we get 2 post-credit scenes that are both during the credits, so they're not really post-credit scenes. But the first scene is, and again, like Mulligan and Let There Be Carnage. I don't even remember who Mulligan is and Let There Be Carnage. So maybe, I guess. I mean, basically, if it's a character that doesn't matter in the movie and is only there as a plot device for the main character, then yeah, it's probably a Mulligan. We could call it a Mulligan going forward. But the first post-credit scene is Adrian Toomes showing up in a prison cell. And he's like, well, isn't this nice? Or something like that. And then there's like a news article or a news briefing about, Adrian Toomes showed up in an empty prison cell. Oh my gosh. And that's it. That is it. That's the scene, which is insane. I mean, the scene opens up with the sky cracking, like in Spider-Man No Way Home. Hey, Lisa, that's my wife. My wife. But it opens up, and so it's like, okay, I don't get this. In No Way Home, the whole situation, and spoilers if you haven't seen it, is that anybody who knew who Spider-Man was comes through from their universe into the MCU. And then when everything gets solved, they're sent back. Everybody is sent back to where they go. So did Adrian Toomes initially start in the Morbius universe, and that's why he went back? That can't be right, because that didn't happen at all in Spider-Man Homecoming. So I don't know. There's no answers to why that scene even exists, and it doesn't make sense at all. It makes 0 sense. And to top it off, the second scene that comes just a few bits after that is Morbius driving a vehicle into the desert at night. And I think Anthony said that it's like an Audi commercial. He shows up, he's got a really nice pea coat on, and he looks like normal Jared Leto. And yeah, Brian is absolutely Sony logic. And he shows up, and we see this. It looked like a plane, and I was like, "Oh no way! Is he about to get picked up and taken away from the Sony universe so we don't have to see him again?" But it ended up being the Vulture. Not Adrian Toomes, the whole Vulture. The entire wingsuit shows up. He's got a weird new helmet. It looks the same, but not. Totally doesn't sound like Michael Keaton, but it kind of does. I don't know what they were doing. I just hope that he got paid, because he shows up and says, essentially, I think we could. He says we should team up. I think we could do some good. And I was like, what do you mean by good? You mean trouble? Because you're talking about the Sinister Six. But then Morbius says intriguing, and then that's the end. And I was not intrigued. I was not impressed. It was really weird, and I left that just thinking, well, I'm glad that I saw this movie. it needed to be seen, I think, because another interesting piece of this is I was really curious if people were review bombing this movie because I it seems like with Sony and anything that's not an MCU movie. Yeah, thank you. And that was the piece I was going to say. How did he get his suit? So what did he steal it from the Vulture in this universe, or has he always been in this universe and he had a space? None of it made sense at all. And yeah, it's funny. I feel like at the end of every Spider-Man movie, Sony keeps trying to tease the Sinister Six. You get that towards the end of Spider-Man 3. You get that in Amazing Spider-Man 2. I don't get it because I wonder how mad they are that Marvel already did that. They had their Sinister Six in No Way Home, and they did it with one less character too. So talk about efficiency there. They did it with 5. Just insane. So, but like I said, I was wanting to see it because uh, sometimes I wonder on these reviews because every time a new Marvel movie comes out, there's a lot of positive buzz about it, right? I mean, even when Eternals came out, I think there were some people, it's not that they said it negatively, they were still pretty positive about it. And then eventually there was a lot of negative reviews about it. But for the most part, most of those movies, they're glowing. I mean, look at the reviews for any MCU property. Like, oh my gosh, this is the opening, the preview reviews are always positive. And then Morbius comes out and it's like, well, it's all negative. And so I always wonder if that's because it's not a Marvel Studios movie, and so I had to see it for myself. But it definitely deserved. I don't think it deserved to be treated as meanly as it has by some, but at the same time, if you've got a movie studio that keeps teasing the things that they're teasing, putting Adrian Toomes in scenes that aren't even in the movie in the trailer to get you to the theater, you deserve to get panned if that's what's going on. If you're more concerned about getting seats opening weekend and for people to come for a very small cameo that you don't even put in the actual movie, then you shouldn't be making movies because that's not the point of making movies. Obviously, the money comes, the money's coming, but you have to put out a good film for people to want to see it. It's not enough to just have good sales on opening weekend. And Morbius only it made 39 million over the weekend, which is pretty good for post-pandemic, I think. Better than I was expecting. But again, I wonder if that's headstrong. And maybe this weekend, now that Sonic's coming out and also that Everywhere All at Once, Everything Everywhere All at Once with Michelle Yeoh, maybe that's going to take away some people. I think the word of mouth is going to be really negative. And so I won't be surprised if we never see Morbius again. And it won't be, 86 million worldwide. Thank you, Brian. That's, I guess, I mean, it cost 75 million for them to make it. So they've got to at least make their money back, and they haven't done that yet because obviously they marketed the crap out of this movie and had to delay it a bunch of times. So I'm sure the budget is way more than 75 million. But that was Morbius. So like I said, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. Wait, I'm thinking of a different movie. No, I don't plan on going to see that movie again. And if you guys don't want to go see it, I won't be. I certainly won't be offended. I'll be on your side, rooting for you to go check out any of the other movies that are in cinema right now. So the second half of the show, what I was going to talk about is a little indie show that I saw on HBO Max over the last few days called Peacemaker. And to some of you may be wondering, okay, Peacemaker's been around for a really long time. Why are you just now seeing this? Well, a good buddy of mine wanted to see it with me, and it took a while for us to kind of coordinate that. And eventually, I was allowed to just watch it because time was kind of running out. So I busted through it real fast. I think I watched all of it in 2 days, and it's that good. So you're looking at a spectrum of Morbius and Peacemaker, and it's no contest. Peacemaker was amazing. And there's a lot of really cool cameos in Peacemaker, too. So what a cast. I mean, you got John Cena playing the titular character from Suicide Squad. I did not know this either, that James Gunn wrote and directed most of the show. And you'll see that I'm less inclined to read DC news than I am. I still read it, but for some reason, I just wasn't aware of a lot of the things that were going on with Peacemaker. And I'm bummed that I didn't watch it sooner just because I know there was a lot of hype around that show as it was coming out. And I mean, starting off with that opening dance sequence for their titles, that was so cool. And there it is. Thank you, Brian. I mean, this is the first time in a while that I have not skipped an intro, which is it's rare, especially when I'm watching it like that in the binge model. I'm skipping the intros every time because I need to get right into the story. I don't want to see the intro again, but that intro was just too good to pass up. And I love that they got every single person to kind of do a little bit of a dance number, all of the recurring characters who were there for more than 2 episodes. So cameo wise, I'm going to hit it off of the oh, interesting. Okay, no Creel of Verdad. Finally able to watch it. That's cool. So you're right there with me. That's perfect. Christopher Heyerdahl. He is the police chief. That I thought there's a lot of twists in the show that I was really happy about, and I think I won't go into too many spoilers just because I don't know if everyone's seen it, and this is one where you don't want to be spoiled for it. There's some really cool twists and turns in it, but Christopher Heyerdahl plays the police chief, but he also plays Marcus in the Twilight movies. If any of you caught that, I noticed it because he was one of my favorite characters. He always had the that really long and sad and sullen face, and I could never look away in the Twilight movies. So I was glad to see him. And then what was it, Zach? I'm looking at Zach Santiago, but his father, which I got to find. Robert Patrick played Augie Smith. John Cena playing Christopher Smith. They both play side to side in a movie called The Marine. If any of you have seen that, that was a movie my brothers and I would watch all the time. Really funny movie, lots of explosions. They were a good guy and bad guy in that movie, so kind of the same here. I thought he was fantastic as the terrible bad guy of a father in so many different ways. I mean, James Gunn, he just gets family dynamics, I think. And I know he's had some interviews where he talks about his father and some of the instances with his own family and how that's kind of inspired some of his writing. But you see that with his Guardians movies. You see that with I feel like maybe a little bit with Brightburn, but you're seeing it again here. You see it in Suicide Squad. Half the people there have whoa. Is Ed is in the comments? Wow, nice. Okay, cool. Hey, Ed. But it was really cool to see James Gunn finding just another way to add layers, especially to a father son duo, because you get that with Ego and Peter in Guardians, and then you get that in multiple ways in Suicide Squad with Bloodsport and his dad, Ratcatcher and her father, and then kind of with Peacemaker. I don't think they talk about it too much, but here's another really cool way of showing that the trauma that his father puts on him kind of made him the way that he was. Favorite actor, and that's actually my mom. What's up, Mom? Favorite actor is the Eagle. Eagly was awesome. From the minute that he gets a hug from that eagle, was amazing. And Jalen, I know you're a big fan of animals. If you're gonna love Eagly, and just amazing. Every scene, he's a scene stealer, and he's also John Cena's best friend, which I thought was great. Freddie Stroma, who plays Cormac McLagan from the Harry Potter movies, is in this as Vigilante, who is an absolute psychopath and bordered on cringe at some points, only because, again, the things that he said, it was like, what are you doing, man? Like, you do not need to be saying that, or you do not need to be pointing a gun at this person. But then when the time came where he actually had to step up and do something, he always made it work. Like, he always perfect shots. Just, he was great, especially that scene where they, again, I won't spoil it, but there's a bit where they're having to snipe some people, and Peacemaker can't do it, and so Vigilante has to step in. So, which was so cool. Let's see who else is. Oh yeah, Danielle Brooks is in this from Orange is the New Black as Leota, and you find out almost immediately that she is Amanda Waller's daughter, which was really cool and a really interesting wrinkle. Anthony just said, "Man, it would have been so much cooler if he threw the chainsaw at me." That bit was awesome. That scene and that episode, there's so much kind of not necessarily attacks on toxic masculinity, but just addressing it. And I think it was so cool to see that being addressed from so many different angles, because you have the buffed up guy in Peacemaker, you have the very insecure guy in Vigilante, but then you also have was his Economos, and he had some instances as well where he's trying to be more than he actually is, and realizes he doesn't need to, that his friends are going to accept him as he is. But that whole bit with the chainsaw was one of the best parts of the series, I think, especially with him getting made. Economos gets made fun of a lot in this show, and yeah, it's cool, Diebeard, and everything. James Gunn just killed it when it came to callbacks. There are so many things that he mentions or talks about in early episodes that come up again, either in the finale or in the penultimate episode as well, which was cool. Morbius didn't do any of that. So um, there you go. We also got Chukwudi Awuji, who plays Mern. I will not reveal anything about his character other than to say he did a really good job as well. He's from John Wick, if any of you have seen that movie. There's another film that he was in too where I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. I'd have to double check because my IMDb on the computer does not tell me the things that I've seen. We also got Lachlan Monroe, who fans of Riverdale was the Black Hood and Betty's father. That was cool. And then Jennifer Holland played Amelia Harcourt, who is kind of the duo with Economos from the Suicide Squad movie. So, like I said, this show was really, really fun. From that first episode, I was absolutely hooked, and I watched 4 in a row and then kind of did the same thing with the other 4. I think I broke them up into maybe pieces of 2, but it flies by. And all credit to HBO and I guess to Warner Brothers as well for making something kind of in the same vein as the Marvel and Star Wars shows, where it's only 8 episodes and the episodes are 40-ish minutes long, maybe 45 to 50, and they're quick. They fly by. Harcourt is engaged. Oh, nice! Congrats to James. That's cool. Harcourt was Lori Lightfoot's. Lori Lightfoot. Okay, I think I remember who that is. I'm getting a lot of names. Oh yeah, Kevin says the glam rock soundtrack was fantastic as well. Again, what a total James Gunn move, but at the same time something so fresh. Where James Gunn is obsessed with music and putting it in his stuff, and he's not. I don't think he's done something like this before. Where it really was the hair metal and rock star type music. And they say it multiple times. There's never a wrong time to rock. And that's actually how Economos and Peacemaker become friends in a way, is because they're through this love of rock. But there's a lot of cool stuff in here. Again, if you know James Gunn, you know that he's a big fan of aliens and big creatures. And again, that's all I'll say with no spoilers on that end, other than he did it. Like, I thought that was so cool that once you start seeing the creatures and they're there, it's not that big of a spoiler, but you think like, okay, this is the same as Suicide Squad, or this is the same as the Guardians movies, and it's not. Everything is just a little bit different, and it does make me wonder for how many more times he can do kind of a, not necessarily a carbon copy. Oh, there we go. There he is, Lori Lightfoot. Oh, wow. Okay, yes, mine. Yeah, almost identical. That's crazy. That's awesome. Also, voice of Eagly was D. Bradley Baker, who many of you probably don't know or do from almost every single thing that needs a voiceover, whether that is the Star Wars, the Clone Wars, or I think I saw he did something else too. I think he was in The Hobbit as well, but he's got a lot of voice credits. But again, I think the message of this movie was really strong, and it's something that so easily could have just been. I mean, Peacemaker in and of himself in the Suicide Squad was kind of a joke, and in a good way. I mean, he killed every single person that he shot. He's a skilled guy with any gun, and that was it. And then he gets shot at the end, and you assume he's dead, but then you stay after the credits, and he's not exactly dead. And so from there, it was like, okay, well, how much more of a story is there to tell with this guy, and how much of emotional range does John Cena have? Because we've only seen him in a few things like The Marine and Blockers, and I saw him in there's a vacation movie. I don't remember the name of it, but it was a Hulu original where it was him. It was like 2 couples that went to an island, and he was this crazy couple. But he displayed. Oh, that's what it was. Thank you, Kevin. He was Morris in Shang-Chi. Thank you. He did such a good job. And I mean, I can't say enough good things about John Cena. He's been one of my favorite wrestlers turned actors. He's right up there with The Rock for me. And to see him doing so well throughout time, because oftentimes a lot of wrestlers, they'll go in and then that's about it. And, they do a couple movies and it's like, oh, actually, this guy can't really act. We're going to need to, step away from him. And really, it feels like the only one who ever really pulled it off was The Rock. But John Cena is really, we didn't see him coming. And I think that makes sense because we couldn't see him coming. So now here he is, and he's kicking butt in every single thing that he's in. And yes, yeah, Anthony, his comedic chops are up there with Chris Hemsworth. I absolutely agree. I don't know if this is a hot take. He might be. He's made me laugh more than Chris Hemsworth has made me laugh. I'm not saying he's funnier than Chris Hemsworth. I'm just saying with my humor, he has made me laugh more. Specifically in this show too. There were probably at least five laugh out loud moments every single episode. Some of them had more than that, but it wasn't just those moments. It was the moments where he got really sad and introspective. And again, he's trying to put on this masculine attitude, and he doesn't need to, but he still feels the need to. And it just something that clearly James Gunn understands really well. But what a great foil for this random B-list DC hero. And there's a lot of mentions of other DC heroes in the show as well. We get some stuff about Aquaman, about a lot of. He basically has like a weird story for every single DC hero. And those are really funny to listen to. Interesting. Okay. We'll see. Hey, everyone is entitled to a bit of their opinion, Brian, when it comes to Chris or whether it's Chris. But we're talking about Chris here in this actual show. I actually like that too. He's got a very basic name, Chris Smith. But yeah, it just the whole story with his brother and what his dad did and made him do with his brother was really, really sad. And just to see Robert Patrick as his dad really being evil. And it's funny, you see characters like Thanos. I would put this guy above Thanos in terms of being actually evil because, Thanos at least loved his kids. And he may say that he loved his other son, Keith, but he does not show that to Chris at all. And he's incredibly mean to him at multiple points in time. But he also has a really cool quantum subparticle closet that hides all of their equipment, which is really random and really awesome. And so you compare that to the random scenes in Morbius, and it's like, how did they not take a page out of this book? Like it was so cool. You just open the closet door and type in the code, and this giant just it was like what do you call it? A loose space and time sort of thing. Very cool, very awesome. He's got all these different cool helmets, which were great. I loved all of the helmet scene. That Sonic Boom helmet was absolutely messed up in a really cool way, especially at the end. The the Cannonball one reminded me of Cannonball from the comics. That was cool too. And then the anti-gravity helmet was great as well. Didn't last very long, but still. Also, big question. I don't know if any of you know this, but how did he even get an eagle as a pet? I kept thinking like that can't be legal. Legal eagle in that sense. Like, and also I'm impressed that the eagle never flew away, or that the police were like, hey man, you can't legally have an eagle. Like, we're gonna have to take that. That's the country's bird. But either way, I was happy that he had it. I loved his little his trailer park as well. It was really great where he stayed in his trailer. Just a lot of cool scenes, a lot of really cool. A gift from the government. Eagerly as a gift from the government. That makes sense, I guess. That would mean why they didn't do any of that. But it was cool. Like I said, it sounds like they have approved it for a second season already, which is awesome. There's definitely some more things to be explored. And that I liked a lot too, that by the end of this season, in lesser hands, maybe that would have been it, that his emotional growth would have been over. He's graduated to being this better person. And that's not the spot we leave him in, which I really liked. He still has a lot of room to grow. A lot of room to become a really great hero. And again, in other hands, I don't think anyone other than Cena could have pulled off some of the things that he pulls off, because there's a lot of questionable moments in the show of things that he does where it's like, man, you are pushing me. You are on thin ice with me. But then he would do something else that was really sweet. And it was like, okay. And I think they even say it at one point. Harcourt says it, something like, I used to think that you were complete trash, but now you're like 80% trash, and the other percent's actually like a pretty okay guy. And that was it was great. A lot more crying in this show than I thought that there would be. But like I said, I really enjoyed it. If you guys haven't seen it, highly recommend checking it out. All the episodes are on HBO Max. And then the last bit I'll leave you guys with is I do this every once in a while, but I watch a lot of movies, and so I do like a lightning round of recent movies that I've watched. So I went, and maybe I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, but I was at my cousin's bachelor party last weekend, and so we had watched some movies, in the evenings, and so we watched Django. If any of you have seen that, Django Unchained by Quentin Tarantino, that movie is insane. It's such a classic and so wild too. We started watching it on TV, so every other word was censored, and then there were commercial breaks, and so eventually we just switched to Netflix and watched it on Netflix. But man, that movie is it's like the ultimate revenge flick. I loved it. Another night we started watching, we only got 20 minutes into the Three Stooges, the 2012 Three Stooges, that has Will Sasso as Mo, and then the guy who plays Russ in Silicon Valley as Mo. Sorry, Will Sasso was Curly. Uh, like I said, we were only about 20 minutes into it, and I kind of liked it. I'm kind of my family, we're big Stooge heads, and I'd never seen the movie before. So I look forward to finishing it, even though I'll tell you this, I prefer to watch The Three Stooges than Morbius. So that'll should tell you something. And then the other movie, we all watched The Other Guys. And if you guys, I'm sure a lot of you have seen The Other Guys. That movie is fantastic. That's Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg as he shot Jeter. And I feel like every line in that movie is quotable, and there's so much about it that is such a time capsule. Aim for the Bushes is a classic. And just it's another Michael Keaton movie, so we get to see Michael Keaton belting off some TLC tracks as well. That was great. The biggest surprise, though, of the weekend was my brother actually, and Mom, if you don't know this yet, you should talk to Joey, because if you haven't seen it, you definitely need to. But I'm a peacock, Cap. You gotta let me fly. Oh man, yeah. Oh, God. I could. Yeah, man. The quotes are coming in. Keep them coming, guys. But we watched. Joey bought my brother a digital copy of Spider-Man: No Way Home. And so we watched that movie again with a couple of people who hadn't seen it yet, which was really cool. That movie's just so awesome. There's so many good parts to it. I'm trying to think if there's anything in it that stuck out to me from my, what is this now, probably fifth viewing of it. But it was just awesome. I mean, and that was we were up pretty late that night because we had gone out, and we did not fall asleep watching that movie. It was, I mean, my other brother Stevie fell asleep during that movie, but again, he's not as big of a Marvel guy, so no problem. Yeah, did you yell at America? No, I didn't. And then when he goes in and grabs when he goes and grabs Mark Wahlberg from his apartment and shoots the ceiling, apartment pop, let's go. It takes him. Oh yeah, that movie is so great, and that movie also kind of ends as well, the same way Morbius does, where the peacock just flies out of the scene into the sky, and then the movie ends, and it's like, oh, okay. I really wish there'd be a sequel. I'd take a sequel to The Other Guys, even if it was two new people playing it. That would be cool. That'd be cool too. But guys, I think that's kind of where we're at right now. So those are the movies that I saw. We've got some new movies coming out this week too in theaters. Sonic 2 hits theaters this Thursday, as does Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I am really looking forward to. I'm seeing things that says it's does the multiverse better than Marvel. Yeah. Goodbye, Terry. Bye, Terry. Good night. Oh, I mean, I don't remember what her name is, but his wife, just a big old broad, just the ball and chain. She is she is plain. All right, she is absolutely plain. But so check out some of those movies coming out this weekend. Like I said, I think Everyone Everywhere All at Once is going to be a really good one. It sounds like it's going to be absolutely bonkers, but that's the perfect thing to go see in a movie theater. And I'm sure Sonic's going to be a lot of fun too. I still haven't seen The Lost City yet, and I really want to. But that's kind of where we're at. And the last thing I'll leave you guys with is, for those of you that are unaware, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness tickets go on sale tomorrow. Look to the comments for the exact time. I don't know if that's midnight or if that's 9 a.m. There it is. Yeah, bye, Sheila. Good night, Terry. Yeah, go inside, Alan. Bye, Sheila. Good night, Sheila. He's like, this can't be real. You guys can't be. Gator needs his cat. Guys, you guys are killing me. But yeah, Doctor Strange tickets go on sale tomorrow. Get those in advance. I imagine that movie's going to fill up. Interestingly enough, It's only clocked at 2 hours and 6 minutes. And I say only, I know. With credits, this probably means it's probably less than 2 hours, but that means that movie is probably going to be a really fast paced movie. I know Sam Raimi does a really good job with short window times and just getting it all done. So super excited to see that. I'm shooting to go see it on Thursday of opening night and probably on Friday and maybe even on Saturday too. Who knows? But stay tuned to Comics and Cinema because we'll have a big mega episode that we'll do a recording on. So for all of you guys listening, thank you so much. To everyone who is in the comments as well that's been talking things up here. Thank you guys so much for your participation. This is really exciting. First live stream for Comics and Cinema, and certainly not the last. So I hope you guys all enjoyed this both here in this live setting on YouTube, and for those of you that are checking it out afterwards, I hope the podcast format still holds up. If it doesn't, let me know and I'll try and edit it a little better. But for Comics and Cinema, I'm your host, Alex Klein, and we will see you at the movies.